Dun, dun. This guy. Gouge cam. Alright, what do I do with my tool door? All right, hang with me for a minute. I'm getting stuff set up. I'm going to be shooting some safety videos, but in order to get everything prepared in order to shoot the videos, I have to turn a bolt. So give me a minute. We'll start getting stuff moving. I'm shooting for our editing, so it's not going to be a normal flow of a TikTok live. So I apologize in advance if that's too much for you. Thanks for dropping in. You will get to see me turn a bowl, but at the same time, I'm going to be stopping and talking a lot because, like I said, doing some safety videos. The wood I have is a piece of walnut that is dry. I got that from Bart at Logs to Treasures, who I have to contact because I'm going to visit him on Tuesday. I'm going to say right now, I do not consider myself an expert. I am very experienced, but I am always learning. And in the military, I was taught, learn one, do one, teach one. So it's in my nature and in my training and in my history to pass on all the knowledge that I gain. If you want to question my knowledge, feel free. But I'm going to tell you right now, my moderators won't be kind. Be polite, and I'll be glad to answer your questions if I see them. So, hang on a second here. Let me figure out where I put my tablet. Let me hope my tablet has a charge. It got awful cold last night. Oh yeah, we're good. Normally, I'm going to do this disclaimer now. Mods, if you're in here, you're probably, if you see this question, I'm doing the disclaimer right now. Normally, I will wear my respirator helmet when working with walnut because I do have a reaction to walnut. However, since I am actively filming safety video and need to be able to be heard clearly, I'm going to not wear the respirator this time. I understand the risks. It is my shop. I accept those risks. Nobody needs to safety police me. If that's a problem, thanks for dropping by. Have a great day. Get this shot set up. I'm going to record 2 intros, one generic intro for individual TikToks and one for the YouTube video. So bear with me again. Okay, get this camera set. Scrap wood all over the place. Not scrap wood. There's no such thing as scrap wood. I have wood that I have not turned yet all over the place. Cobalt Cutlery in the house. What's up, brother? How'd you do in the first round? Was that you and Carver Gage who were the top scorers? Okay, again, I'm shooting YouTube videos, so bear with me. I've got to do intros. I'm shooting a combination of YouTube and TikTok shorts, so forgive the intros. Hello and welcome to the shop. Today I'm going to be shooting not necessarily the making of a bowl so much as some tool handling techniques and blah, blah, blah. Let's try that again. Take 2. Hello and welcome to the shop. Today I'm going to be turning a bowl, but at the same time, the goal of this video is not how to make a bowl, as much as it is some tips and techniques that I've picked up over the years that I want to pass on to you so that you can turn safely and effectively. I am not an expert by any means, however, I am very experienced, and in the military I was trained to learn one, do one, and teach one. And I live by that philosophy. As I gain new skills, it really gives me a lot of pleasure to pass those on. Experienced turners, if you see something I'm doing that I'm not doing right, please let me know in the comments. New turners, have an open mind and watch the techniques as I share them with you. These are techniques that I've picked up from watching famous wood turners. These are things that I've learned that I want to make sure that I pass on to you so that you can use those techniques and tools as well. I'm going to be using 3 different gouges. First of all, my Thompson Tools 5/8 inch bowl gouge with a 60-degree Ellsworth or Irish grind. I'm also going to be using my Thompson Tools 1/2 inch bowl gouge with a 45-degree Irish grind on it. That's more, I use that one because that one just works real well for me. And then I have a 5/8 inch Sorby with a 40/40 grind, which I need to refresh. So I'll be showing techniques using the 40/40 as well. Are any of these the only technique or the right technique or the best technique? No. You need to find the techniques and you need to find the tools that work best for you. And then you need to learn to use them both effectively and safely. I'm going to give you some tips that have helped me, and I'm going to use some more unique tools to do so. This is a great tool. If you shoot YouTube videos, this is really handy. It'll hang on to the tailstock. You can stand it on the headstock. You can do a lot of fun things with this. If you don't have a little GoPro-sized camera and a underwater mount, let me tell you, the Gouge cam has taught me, just shooting footage from the Gouge of my own turning, has taught me a lot. So even if you just review your own video in order to see how you're cutting, this little mount is incredibly useful. So if you can do it, I really highly recommend it. You can see links to the tools that I use in the comments on YouTube. I'll make sure that the camera's in there. It came with this, and I haven't added this little creature yet, but I'll make sure that I get that into the comments too. Thanks for joining. And again, this is informative. These are things that I've learned that I want to pass on to you so that you can turn effectively and safely. All right, that intro is done. Now we're going to do the TikTok intro. Hello, welcome to the shop. I'm here to give you some tool tips. Is this the only way to use the tools? No. This is the way I've learned to use them that is safe and effective for me, and I'm hoping to pass on some of that knowledge. If you see something I'm doing that you think is dangerous, please let me know. Give me a comment. If you see something that I'm doing that can be done better, show me. Duet, stitch, show me. Let's learn together. Let's grow together. I don't consider myself an expert, but I am experienced, and I've been doing this for a few years, and these are some tips and tricks that I've learned that I want to pass on to you. Okay, that's part one. Any questions in the live? Yes, I do have a YouTube, but I don't know what language you're speaking. Is that French? I don't know. Yes, I have a YouTube. The link is in my bio. Watai Wood Turning on YouTube. Well, hey, Will. So I'm going to, usually I would go after the live edge or at least natural edge, so I would put the woodworm screw in this side. However, to demonstrate a problem that I saw today live, I'm going to put it on this side because it's just faster and easier in order to demonstrate and teach how to avoid that problem. So, and it's really kind of silly. Not that the turner who I saw do this is not silly. I'm saying we should all realize that this trick I'm about to show, because it's kind of silly that we don't understand it. So I am not saying anything against the turner. She's a very skilled lady, and I enjoy watching her lives, and I want her to improve. So I told her I would do some videos, and this is something that I see commonly. So I'm going to address it because there's an easy solution. Drill. Make holy thingy. That's too. There it is. Again, remember, I am. Hey, Lori. Remember, I am talking both for the video's sake, more for the video's sake than for yours. However, welcome, and I'm glad you're here, and I hope you can pick some stuff. Tip number one, a lot of people mount bowls on the chuck with a woodworm screw, and it's a fantastic way to hold a bowl while you're roughing it out and turning the base of the bowl. I've seen a lot of turners have challenges with getting bowls off the woodworm screw, so I'm going to attempt to set that up and give myself a problem trying to get this off the woodworm screw. I've seen turners put wax on the screw, put wax in a hole, do all kinds of crazy things because they have an issue where after they've rough turned the outside of the bowl or turned it and got the tenon or the mortise on it, and they can't get the bowl off the woodworm screw. Now, when you put it on the woodworm screw, you got to get it in there tight, right? You're holding a bowl that's spinning, so that needs to be in there tight. The problem comes when you're trying to take it off, and it won't move. So a lot of people sit there and wrestle it and fight it, and they really have a hard time. And if you pull hard enough, you knock your chuck loose because you just can't get it out. Here's the thing. The way the woodworm screw works is this is a plane, and as you twist the wood around the plane and it pulls it down, it pulls it against the face of the jaws. It is not the screw in the wood that creates the pressure that holds the bowl to the chuck. It is the face of the bowl, of the piece of wood, and the face of the chuck, the jaws. This creates the pressure that pulls it down. So when you unscrew it, you loosen that pressure. But if you get that pressure on there good, like this, like you're supposed to, because you want it to be safe and you don't want it to come flying off, you can't unscrew it. You start unscrewing your chuck. The solution is silly. It is so simple. Again, what's holding the bowl to the chuck is simply the pressure created by the screw sucking down the face of the wood to the face of the chuck. Now I have to move the camera. Now, live, you're going to see me do this twice, most likely. Meaning, you're going to see me use this technique to get the bowl off the woodworm screw twice. Nope, you got to move over. The simple solution to this problem: relieve the pressure. If you take the woodworm screw in the bowl out of the chuck and grab a wrench, half turn, you should be able to remove the woodworm screw by hand. Again, it's not the screw in the wood that creates the pressure, but as you can see, it's actually the wood pressing against the face of the jaw. And if this was perfectly flat, it would be even more difficult to remove it because there would be more surface area creating the pressure. Once you relieve that pressure, that woodworm screw comes right out. Hope that helps. All right, video one. Does that make sense? I see people doing crazy stuff, Lori, to try to get the wood off the woodworm screw. You don't have to fight it. Just pop it out. It literally is this friction here that's holding the bowl. It's not the... I mean, the screw threads are holding the bowl, but that's not tight. It's the pressure. What's up, Jay? How you doing, brother? Nice to see you. So that's tip number one, and I'm going to edit that together in a little YouTube short, or a little TikTok short. Oh, come on. There we go. So this next part is just roughing. Let me sharpen my 4040. I forgot that I haven't used my 4040 since I got the, I haven't used my Sorby since I got the Thompson, because Thompson. Well, give me a second here. The Sorby's not bad. It's a good gouge, but let me tell you, I've lost almost an inch off of the end of this Sorby from sharpening. The Thompson, no. The Thompson is solid. All right, I'm going to run this short. Can I run it? Nope, I got to run it long. I've already got that angle on it. Yeah. Okay, I'm going to tell you guys this live, but I'm not going to, it's going to make it too confusing for the videos. So this is a 40/40 grind at a fingernail. Hey, Doug, what's up? There's a 40/40 grind with a fingernail, and I took the heel off so that even though I am going to be rubbing the bevel, I don't have all this bevel out here. One of the big problems with the 40/40 grind is you got this buttload of bevel sticking out here, down here. And so when you start to get, especially around the inside of a bowl, that bevel gets in your way, lifts the tip off, and you start ripping grain. You start tearing grain because you're actually cutting. You're actually cutting. Hang on, let me get it a little bit. See how that little lip is up above when it should be riding there? If I've got all that bevel, when I start getting the inside curve, it starts pushing this out, and I'm tearing instead of slicing. Whereas if I take that heel off, and I could probably go a little more drastically, I will keep that down, and I'll keep just the cutting edge in the wood, and I can make a tighter curve and get a cleaner cut. That's one of the drawbacks of the 40/40. And same problem with the Ellsworth grind. Look how much heel is there. If I'm having issues, I can shave off that corner, just keep the little cutting edge, okay? And I can just shave that corner, and that gets out of my way. So the only thing touching is that 60-degree bevel on the cutting edge. So, just a little tip. That's not going in these videos. Just a little tip. Just the tip. Doug, again, congratulations, brother. I wish I could have retired. Injuries made that impossible, but good on you, brother. Okay. You know, and I know, that is really being held on there tightly. Okay? We both know that. However, if you want to be safe, bring your tailstock up until you have to take it away. That's another just bonus no-duh safety tip. Well, it's not a no-duh safety tip. I see people forget all the time. The safest thing to do is keep your tailstock up as much as possible. Please keep your tailstock up for your own sake and for the sake of anybody in the room with you, because if you whack somebody with a bowl coming off, they're not gonna take that lightly. Okay, again, remember, I'm going to remind you guys, I'm shooting for YouTube and safety shorts. So I'm going to turn a little bit and stop. And again, safety police, normally I would have my respirator on because I do have a reaction to walnut. However, I have to be able to be heard, and I sound like fucking Darth Vader with that thing on. So, and I cuss, by the way. I'm a sailor, so just get used to it. You want to see crazy rig? Let's do the crazy rig. This is a fun angle. I like this angle. I need to shoot B-roll anyway, so killing multiple birds with one stone. Poor birds. I'm just slaughtering them. This angle is really good until you start hollowing. Then you can't use it. For you guys who shoot YouTube videos out there, this is an Akeso Brave 4 Pro. It's a great little camera. They have an 8 now that shoots. This shoots in 4K at 30 feet per minute or per second. They have an 8. They have the 8 Pro just came out, and it shoots 4K at 60 feet per second. Let's see how shaky we are. We shouldn't be too off balance. Oh, that's beautiful. Look at that. Nice. Alrighty. If y'all don't follow Doug the Wood Turner, go follow him. He's another experienced turner. Member of the Worldwide Wood Turners. A good dude. Just retired from the United States Army. Hoo-ah. Hey, Alex. All right, I'm going to start with the 40-40 just because I don't want to dull up the Ellsworth. Another tip, no matter what grind you're using, get your arms as close to your body as possible. Use your body to counterbalance, especially when you're coming from rough like this. Use your body to counterbalance the wood. Left hand is basically just holding the gouge down. Shift your weight, let the gouge do the work. It's all in the hips. It's a dance. And there's nothing wrong with stopping often to move your tool rest so that you can keep the rest as close to the piece as possible so that you maintain your leverage. Yeah, you can contact, depending on what you're doing, having the palm of your hand on the tool rest, using your hand on the tool rest is good practice. However, just a second. However, what's really important is when you're cutting and you want to cut clean, what's really important is that you let your left hand move the tool. You need to use your body and your body weight and shift to move the tool. Now, when you're turning the outside contour of a bowl, and this is going to be one of the tips, but I'm not quite to the point where I can show that yet. When you're turning the outside contour of a bowl, if your hand is anchored here, you only have this arc of movement. However, if you just use your hand to put weight on top of the tool and bring it back so that you're locked into your body, you've got a tripod here. Okay, your tripod, just like they teach you to shoot in the military, you're forming a tripod base with your body to hold the end of that rifle. So your body weight is what maintains steadiness. Exact same concept with the tool. The tool sits on a tool rest. Hard, solid point of contact. 1, 2, 3. And the closer you suck this into your body, the more control you have. And so when you're cutting, and once I get it round where I can make a couple of good smooth passes, when you're cutting, if you just simply move and let the tool guide itself through the wood, you will get a clean, smooth cut, and you will get minimal tear out. We'll get there. I got to get to that first. And you'll see that in the edited videos, you'll see that up close. Because, I mean, this is right here, so you'll see that up close. For roughing, having your tool, having your hand right there is perfect because you're just taking little bites like this. You're letting the tool do the work. All you're doing is shifting your head. You'll see what I do. Set the tool, set my hand, bring the tool in. This is merely a fulcrum. Shift my hip. And guess what? I'm not getting any strain. I'm not working. I'm just moving. And you can do it with any of the grinds. Now we're getting closer to round, but we are not quite round yet. I'm going to go back to the 40/40 simply because I don't want to dull up my Ellsworth. So if you think about it and you think about using the fulcrum, you're pushing forward with your right hand. That's getting the tool pressure in, right? Well, I can only move, what, half an inch? Sure, but if you push in with your right hand, forward with your right hand, and swing back left a little, you can move another quarter of an inch. So I'm pushing forward and swinging left at the same time. That moves the tip of the tool forward. And again, when you're roughing like this, I'm taking this from a oddly shaped log to round. Take your time. Take little bites. Probably one more full series and we'll get it. Let me pick my tablet back up. Need to get a bungee cord for the tablet. Oh, this is a pretty little log. So yeah, Bart's not in here because he's out playing with his new oh hey. Hi. He's out playing with his new yeah, that's a terrible shot. He's out playing with his new lathe. Alright, so here, where I'm getting where I have a consistent surface, I'm not turning as much air, I move my hand back. So I'm going to go from swinging from left to right, dividing the bevel, and swinging from right to left, which is why I take my hand off the tool rack. Now when it becomes too sharp, and I need to get around this corner, I just move the tool rest. Make sure it's clear because I still have square edges here. So I can still do the same concept, kind of guide the gouge in, and then follow it through. Swing to the right, guide it in, slide to the left, and follow through. And I just lost the edge on my 4040, but that's okay. It's about time to switch to the Ellsworth anyway. I wonder if I can keep some of this bark. That might be interesting. We'll try it. Let me... There it is. Hang on a second. The foot on this little camera mount is not deep enough for these screws, but I have a washer that I use on my pen mandrel. That's the perfect size. I need to get more of these. There we go. Ah, there we go. Now it's holding it solid. Okay. So I'm going to go back to the Ellsworth, and I'm going to start making some passes and closing this up so that I get the continuous shape of a bowl. So I can start right here, get in, slide my hand back, just shift my hips, pick it up again, get in so I'm riding the bevel, slide my hand back, shift my hip. Now I need to move the rest. Same procedure. Now I see I still have a line here. Ultimately I'm going to get rid of that line. But I'm also still rough. I've still got flat spots. So I'm not as concerned with a finished cut as much as I am in removing bulk of material. Get it in. Slide my hand back. Lift, shear to the left. If I'm slowing the lathe down, I've got too deep of a bite. Taking too much material out. Problem with these mini lathes. The key, though, is I'm not working very hard. It's all shifting my body weight. It's all just using the momentum of the bowl and shifting my body weight. So I've got to get past the bark to get a recess on the bottom of the bowl. So I'm going to start working that out. I'm going to use the smaller gouge for that simply because I've got to clear my tail rest. it's the same thing. Now once I get the tool biter, let the tool do the work. Pro tip, depending on the size of your jaws, if you're using the 60 millimeter jaws on a Nova Chuck, you set your pencil on top of your life center. That is the perfect size for your recess. If you are going to put a tenon on it, just come in a little bit more. Oh boy, I knocked the edge off of that puppy fast. Hang on just a second. Let me get a fresh little bite on here. My wings are okay, but I didn't get the tip quite right. Sorry, the tool slid in the holder. I had to fix it. Okay, so again, I'll put my heel up here. Get in. I'm just going to swing my hips. Nice and easy. Let the tool do the job. Now, when you're using this technique, which is slicing the wood, and you're getting a good clean cut, a lot of times you have to move in order to continue to have that easy, even motion. When you move your tool rest and reset, and you want to pick up that same cut, let the bevel touch first, rock it in until it starts to bite, and then pick up the cut. Move your feet. Make sure you've got enough room to sway. Let the tool do the work. And if for whatever reason the tool's giving you trouble and you're just not getting it right, try a different tool. Depending on how dry the wood is, that tool can get dull really fast. Okay, at this point, I'm ready to start making some finish cuts, but this is pretty smooth in and of itself. I usually do well, nope, I still got to get that, I still have a flat spot. So I got to take a couple more deeper passes before I make a finish cut. So again, I'm going to get my hip up, my hand, the heel of my hand up here, right in, slide my hand back. Just follow the tip of the tool. If I get too deep, take a step. Now out here, you can hear it. I'm turning air. I got that chunk of bark. I'm hoping I can keep that band of bark. I've got a little tiny bit of the flat. I'm hoping I can keep the band of bark, but if I lose it, it's not the end of the world. All right, let's see if I can make a good, long, clean finishing pass. I munged up the geometry of this. I'm going to have to spend some time on it. If your tool is riding right, let me pick this back up. If your tool is riding right, and you're moving your body, and keeping the forward pressure with your right hand, you don't use your left hand. You can turn a bowl with one hand. The left hand simply holds the tool down on the tool rest. You can do it with one finger. Putting no directional pressure on the tool with my left hand. Everything is guided by where the tip of the tool is and forward momentum from my right hand. Knock that down so it's not sharp. All right, you still end up sometimes getting little tool marks, and what I'm getting here is an in and out motion because the bark is softer than the wood. So you want to do something called shear scraping. I don't know if I can move this camera where you guys can see or not, but I'm going to try. Actually, I think I can. Hold on, don't get seasick on me. I'm going to move you around. I did this the other day and it looked pretty good. Okay, you should be able to see the angle that the tool is addressing the wood here. So, and this is such a cool angle. So on the finishing cuts of your bowl, when you have little tool marks and lines, here I've got a little bit of a vibration that's set up because the bark is much softer than the actual flesh of the wood. So I've got a little bit of lumpiness from vibration. I want to remove that, but if I continue to use the tool in the same way where I just ride the bevel, it's just going to keep magnifying that. So how do I get that away? How do I get that out? Well, there are a lot of different ways. You can use a scraper, negative rake scraper like this will do the job. However, then you're scraping your bowl. Or you can do what's called a shear scrape, which has more of a cutting motion. For a shear scrape, you've got to use an Irish grind so that you have a deep wing. 60-degree Ellsworth style Irish grind is usually better. And what you're doing is you're going to hold the tool almost completely closed. If you get over, you will get a catch and it'll try to pull the tool down in and it'll gouge the bowl. So when you're shear scraping, you do rest your left hand on the tool rest. This is to provide steadiness and a break, but you're still elbows in to the tool handle at your waist, and you're still going to shift your weight to move the tool. I'm not using the tool rest to get any kind of purchase. Some people I see, I don't like this practice, but some people will put their hand under and just hold a finger on it. I don't like that. I don't like my hand next to that edge where I can get cut. So I put the heel of my hand so that if my hand, as long as the blade of the tool is touching the bowl. That's the furthest place I can shear scrape with the wing of my tool, is there. I can't get around this way, so I can't push my hand into the bowl. The only thing I can do is pull back, resting the heel of my hand and then closing my fingers, but I can get that shear scrape. You see that little tiny slice there? I can get that clean shear scrape without worrying about this and without worrying about that. Watch. This shear scrape works in either direction, as long as you don't dig the tool in. If you dig the tool in, you scar the wood. So I'll actually have to take a pass to fix that. Use the lighter tool. So rub the heel, close that bevel a little, get it to bite, and just follow it in. Get a little bit of a mark there, a little bit of a shift. I just very lightly shear scrape. The shavings you get from shear scrape are ultra fine. I call it angel hair. If you're getting more than that, you're digging in too much. I'm going to shape this a little. This bowl is telling me that it wants a bit of a different shape, and I'll probably lose my bark, which is okay, but I want it. It's going to be a pretty bowl. I might as well make it a pretty bowl. Ah, there's spalting in there. Woohoo! Spalted walnut. Okay, again, shear scraping. I got a little bit of a tool mark here and a little bit of a tool mark here. Hand resting. I'm not in a position, I'm not going to be able to push around here, so I'm not going to push my hand into the bowl. Ever so lightly. You don't want, you're not, when you're shear scraping, you are not horsing away material. This is not a pull cut. Just massaging the surface of the wood. Not bad. Now I've got to deal with this. And like I said at the beginning, I do have an allergic reaction to walnut. Forgive me. Okay, while I'm resetting cameras, any questions? Wait, hang on, I can't see you. Just a second. Okay, any questions? What's up, Bill? Can I start over from the beginning? There will be a YouTube video of this. You'll get to see the, well, edited, but you'll get to see the whole thing on YouTube. But I basically started with a half round, and we're discussing, look at that. Like I said, I started with a half round, and we are discussing safe tool handling, safe techniques, ways to avoid pitfalls of handling a tool with wood spinning at you at, I think we're running around 1200 RPM. Clear up the area a little bit. If I start sneezing, I'm going to have to go outside. All right, so I still have some bark here, which is okay, but the bark is very much softer than the actual wood itself. So I want to make sure when I cut this mortise here that I have at least 2/3 solid wood as opposed to what the bark content. So I may go a little deeper than I would normally do with this mortise, just so I get clear of the bark. I still keep the character, but I want my jaws of my chuck to be opening up into solid wood, not into bark. And that is not going to be a good shot. All they're going to see is my elbow. Hang on, I gotta set the other camera up. That'll work. Now, to clear out a small space like this, a small recess here, and make sure that I've got a nice flat base on my foot. I'll use the 1/2" gouge simply because it's easier to manage in this small space. Why am I going to put a big 5/8" gouge that's what? 1/3 of the size of this recess? It's too much. So I'll use a smaller gouge. Sometimes I might even use my 3/8" gouge. That's a 45-degree detail grind with the heel ground off of it so that I'm only using a little bit of the tip. So I might use this gouge if I need to get in tight. But the 45-degree grind, the detail grind on the 1/2" gouge works really well. Make sure that the tip of the tool reaches the center of the piece. Adjust your tool rest if you need to. This is one of the occasions where you're going to take the gouge away from your body. In order to get the point of the gouge to get in, I have to open up my arms and pull. The other thing I can do, but it will cause a lot of tear out, is I can do, because this is side grain, I can do a drill and pull, which still I'm pushing the gouge away from my body. This is kind of an unavoidable, if you're using a gouge, it's unavoidable that you're going to have to get the gouge away from your body and pull it back in kind of a rowing motion in order to get that cut. And here, I'm gonna move the camera back a little bit and show you that. So in order to get that cut, I've got to get way out here so that I can get the point of the gouge in. Heel of my hand and my fingers here, I'm just putting downward pressure so that this is a fulcrum, and I'm gonna row. I'm just gonna pull that in a nice smooth motion so that I can get the heel of the gouge in there and ride the bevel. Looks something like this. So you'll notice when I use that motion, as soon as I can, I'm back to my locked tripod position. I'm back to holding in here, elbows in, and using my body to shift forward and make this cut. And you'd see I've got a very smooth cut. There's a little bit of tiny bit of tear out right here where I was doing this. That's to be expected. The only thing that was touching was this little tiny point here. Yeah, that was more to show you the body motion. Okay, so the only thing that's touching is this little tiny point until I get around and can ride the bevel. So you should expect a little tear out here. To fix that little bit of tear out, again, break the rules, get the bevel touching, and come out. So this is one of the very few times that I think anybody will ever tell you to pull the point of the gouge in with your hand. All the control, in this case, you have a tripod, but it's a very loose tripod. All the control is right here. So the motion again, if I want to dig the tip in, follow it around until I ride that bevel across. And then to clean it up, now that I've got the depth, I can come in and do some very light cuts, clean it up. Then again, I'm breaking the rule again. I'm breaking that tripod rule. Ride the bevel. Now, at this point, this 1/2" bowl gouge, although it has created an effective mortise, is not going to do exactly what I need, which is to have a flat bottom, as close to perfectly flat as possible, and then a slight dovetail. So there are a couple of ways I can do this. There are dovetail scrapers. They're great, but they're good for one thing. 6 of one, half a dozen of the other. If you want to use one, that's great. Get a dovetail scraper. The other thing you can do is pretty simple. As Bart calls it, the dovetail the dovetail recess tool. If you take your skew chisel and essentially orient it as a negative rake scraper, you get depending on this angle, you get roughly a 15-degree dovetail simply by taking it straight in like this. And then come across the bottom. Now it's a little bit low. That's not the end of the world. You can move your tool rest up a little so that you get this. Now I have a box scraper that I created that is a negative rake scraper. This is a 90-degree angle canted so that I can get down into the inside of a deep box. This gives me a flat scrape. It's perfectly flat, or as perfectly as I can get it. And this works just as well. The only thing it doesn't do is give me a dovetail. But at this point, what I'm concerned about is making sure the bottom of this is flat. Come underneath, just underneath the little dot in the center, bring it up, and then slide it out. This is a completely different tool, completely different control. You're not necessarily going to be able to set up your tripod. Come up and out. So I want to confirm, because again, if I'm going to use my brand, I want a flat bottom. There are all kinds of tools you can use. This is just a little angle finder, but it's also perfectly square. And see, I have a little bit of a hill here, so I've got to flatten that out. I probably need to refresh the edge on this scraper, the burr. What cuts is a burr on the edge of this scraper. So by just running, this is a 600 grit diamond card. Just by running it up, I freshen that burr, and I'll get the edge too. Not complicated. I'm just getting a little bit of a fresh burr on there. So I'm going to come from below, bring it up, and across. Now I'll show you the same thing with the skew, because I made that box scraper. You can buy them, but you can do the exact same thing with a skew chisel. Come up from below and slide across. Exact same motion. This is in essence a negative rake scraper. At this point, you are not skewing with it, you scrape it. And we are pretty darn close to perfectly flat. It's not enough. There's no it's not rocking. So, and I have a little recess, and I don't know if you could see or not, but I'm actually have a good 1/16 and maybe even 1/8 of an inch of solid wood before the bark comes up. So I know that that's going to hang on to that. Okay, so back to taking it off the woodworm screw. I'm not going to sand it right now. I may not, well, yeah, I'll probably end up just sanding it when it's in the chuck the reverse way, but kind of the purpose of what we're shooting here is handling, so tool handling. Again, I want to unscrew it. I have less leverage now. This is a smaller piece of wood. And I'm a big, strong guy. I got it off of there. I'm unscrewing it. But again, to demonstrate, if you can't do that, if you can't get it unscrewed, don't panic. Don't come up with ratchet straps. Don't do any of that silly stuff. What's holding the bowl to the chuck is the pressure, when you screw it, of the face of the bowl and the face of the chuck. So if you just remove the woodworm screw from the chuck, not quite finger loose, but half a turn. And that's tight enough that it's squealing. But You stop fighting with your bowls. Just take it out of the chuck. It works every time. Not even 60% of the time. 100% of the time it works. Remember, I showed you if you set your pencil on your if you set your pencil on the edge of your live center and draw your circle, you've got the perfect size for a recess. It may be a little big, but I did cut that a little big because I was showing you techniques. You only need about 1/16 of an inch, that end of that dovetail, to grab that recess and hold it open. This is all leverage. And what you don't want is the foot of the bowl on the face of the chuck. Let me show you on another chuck. Well, another jaw. That's the wrong jaw. Okay, what you don't want is the foot of the actual bowl touching here and this not all the way deep. So you don't want a super deep recess. You only need about 1/16 of an inch to 1/8 of an inch there. Between 2 and 4 millimeters is all you need. So you want this all the way butted up on the inside of the bowl and open. That's what you want. Okay. I'm not really shooting. This one says I'm not really shooting for the YouTube. Okay. What grabs the bowl is this little ridge right here. That's what's holding the bowl as it opens up. And this is a dovetail. So on the inside, I just lost battery power anyway. So on the inside, it's the same thing in reverse. What grabs the bowl is this. If you're using a tenon, this little edge is what's holding the bowl. All right, battery change. Okay. So again, we're talking about safety. We're talking about doing this safely. Remember, I left this little lip. I left this little rim. I flattened it, but I left it hanging there. So the first thing we got to do is take this away. Hang on. Let me get the... Okay. There we go. So first thing we got to do is clean this rim up. Okay. So I'm going to go back to the 40/40 grind, simply because that's probably one of the most common. Everybody sees, oh, 40/40, 40/40. Not a lot of people use the Ellsworth, but a lot of people use the 40/40. And it's a good grind, and it's got its uses. Remember, I ground this at 40/40, and then I took the heel of the gouge off. So it's not all 40/40, as opposed to my 1/2 inch is at 45 degrees, and I have the whole heel. If I want to do some detail work on the inside of a bowl, I'll take that heel off. But it hasn't been necessary, and there's a way around it, which I'll show you guys. So using the 40/40, first thing I'm going to do is come in here, and I'm going to take small bites. One of the things that people have a tendency to do that can endanger them is just, let's just gouge it. It's a gouge. Let's dig in. I'm not going to do that. I'm going to take small bites. I'm also going to bring my tailstock back up. The safest you can be on the lathe at all times is when it is between centers, meaning you have the headstock and the tailstock. Now, you'll notice my banjo here gets in the way. When you're hollowing, try to extend your tailstock. Give yourself as much tailstock reach as you can. And another thing you can do, if you're not sure if you're centered or if you're not sure if you're seated, you can bring tailstock up, put some pressure so that you're pressing the bottom of the bowl onto the jaws, and then set your jaws. So you know that you are absolutely sure that you're bottomed out in the recess and that the little corners of those jaws are biting into the wood. Tighten it pretty firmly. However, you can get too tight and you can blow the sides of that out. So don't horse on it too much. At this point, when you're hollowing, you're talking about a lot of finesse. So here, the first thing we're going to do is take this little edge off and flatten the surface of this bowl. Small bites. Like that. Too much of a pass, too much leverage. One thing I don't like about the 40/40 grind is on a small lathe like mine, it gives me too much leverage. I have too much power, and I stop my lathe when I use the 40/40 grind. That's why I don't use it very much. Okay. This edge can cut you. I'm not quite level, so I've got to come down and maybe 2 more light passes. But then I am going to soften this edge. This edge will slice you open. Unless you have a very specific design in mind, and you can be mindful and careful round this edge. All I got to do is soften it up, and now it won't cut me if I bump it. Thankfully, I don't have any scars right here. I can tell you a world-famous wood turner who does. Jay knows. Okay, so hollowing. When you're hollowing a bowl, the bigger the bowl, the thicker you want the walls, but the thickness of the walls is always going to be relative to the width of the bowl. So these walls are going to be fairly thin. If this was a 12-inch bowl, that might be the wall thickness right there. This is not a 12-inch bowl. We're looking at about 7.5 inches here. So I'm probably going to go roughly 1/4 of an inch. So that's the thickness of my bowl. The first thing I want to do, and I'll use the Ellsworth just to show that it can be done. The first thing I want to do is establish my thickness. So I'm simply going to come in right here. And start cuts. Now, there's a couple other ways you can do that. A smaller gouge will get me a deeper cut. 1/2 inch gets in there pretty well. You see, I got a nice deep cut there. You can even go so far as to say, well, this isn't going to be my final rim. I want to make sure I establish my thickness. Point tool. Point tool will work. How about a tool everybody has? Parting tool. Bam, thickness of the wall established. Not only is the thickness of the wall established, but the heel of my gouge has somewhere to rest against as I start cuts. I've already got support. In the same way with the 40/40, even though I've taken a lot of the heel off, I can still get in there. So those are just a couple of different methods you can do. Now let me show you something else you can do. And this is something Mark doesn't do Jay, something else you can do is open your gouge up almost all the way. And I call it shooting. So I'm looking at this edge of the wing, and I'm going to shoot that straight down. But the angle of my wing is going to push my gouge this way. So all I'm doing is pushing it straight in and following that around. And I get a clean cut. It's really more of a scrape, but it's clean. I don't get a lot of tear out, but it starts to establish that angle. Whereas if I'm tilted like this, it's going to shove it immediately away. So you line this edge right here up, take it straight in, and the actual bevel from the wing is going to walk your gouge around and establish your rim. That works. You don't want to turn the whole bowl that way, but in order to establish the first cut to get your rim, you can do that. Now, remember I said the safest this is always going to be is if you're between centers, okay? So I want to keep this tailstock up as long as possible, which means I'm going to turn as much of this bowl as I can until this gets in my way. How do we do that? We take steps. Now, that's with an Ellsworth grind at 60 degrees, which is the same as a traditional English grind as far as the angle of the tip of the tool, 60 degrees. You can do the same thing with an English grind, but it takes a little bit longer. Now, the reason it takes a little bit longer is because you've got this bluff face. This whole face here is rubbing, this is bevel, and it's rubbing in, and your pressure is almost direct. Whereas with the Ellsworth grind, you still have the same bluff face, but then the shoulders. So when you get in there at 60 degrees with your bluff face, the shoulders move that out of the way, and you have more offset. So, the most effective way to hollow and hog out material, as it's sometimes said, okay, is you're going to get your, again, tool handle to your hip, almost a 45-degree angle. You're going to come in virtually up and down, almost vertical, and in as far as you can. And the same as we were doing on the outside, you're going to simply anchor your left hand and use it to pivot. As a fulcrum, and you're simply going to swing your hips, and you're going to let the tip of the tool do the work. Now, inside a small bowl like this, 5/8 inch bowl gouge, we're taking up a lot of space this way. I find it, for me personally, a lot more effective to use my 1/2 inch bowl gouge. But I'm going to do the same thing. Anchor. Swing my hips. You can see I have a lot of leverage. I'm also turning fairly slow. Get up the momentum and I have more inertia. Okay, now we're running into the problem again. My tailstock is in the way, but it's not in the way if I shoot this cut. So I'm still keeping the tool up against my body. I'm riding this wing, but I'm actually cutting right here. And then I'm closing the gap. So I'm coming in fairly wide open, riding the wing, and then closing the bevel so that I can get in there and get a shear cut. But I'm running out of room. I'm still hogging out material so I can go much deeper. Again, using the steps so that one, the angle, the bevel is supported at all times. That's why we cut the steps. But two, the more meat we take out of the middle of the bowl, the more flex the outer edge of the bowl has. So as long as we can keep as much meat as possible in here while we're working on these edges, the more support we have of these edges and the less they're going to flex, which means the cleaner cut we're going to get. So I'm just hogging material out of this bowl, getting it out of the way. See, there's a crack right here. So the more time I keep with wood in here, the less time that crack has the opportunity to open and blow the side of the bowl out. But right now, I'm worried about removing mass. So why am I taking such nice clean cuts? Well, because this gives me an opportunity to practice good technique and get clean cuts so that by the time I'm making my final cuts, I've got this bowl. I know what the wood's going to do. I know how my gouge is working today. I know that the humidity's affecting or not affecting things. All of that makes a difference and makes changes in how the bowl's going to cut. So by the time, if I'm using the same technique that I'm going to use to make my final cuts while I'm just hogging material out, by the time I make my final cuts, I'm going to get nice, clean cuts because I've been doing it the whole time. See, I'm just rubbing the heel here. If I shoot it, I start getting a bite. Now, let me show you that with the 4040. Again, this is a 5/8" bowl gouge, so it's a little bit chunky for this size of a bowl, but we can still do it. Since I took that heel off, I just have the cutting edge rubbing. I still have bevel control. So I have bevel connection, but I'm not getting the heels not kicking me up like this so that I'm tearing. But all good things must come to an end. The tool rest, or the tailstock is just in my way now. It's just in the way. So we take it out. Now, the further you get your tool off the tool rest, the less control you have. Here's where curved rests are really effective. But if you don't have a curved rest, you move your rest. The tool rest moves. Don't forget to move your tool rest. We'll start with the 4040. Show you how that works. Now again, we're breaking that law on my triangle's not there. So I'm going to anchor here, dig in, and row. I'm going to pull it into my body. Here, dig in, and row. I'm going to pull it into my body. Now that I'm anchored, I can use the same motion of shifting my hips. And in this case, I'm swinging my hips left. It's driving the point right down into the bowl. Now, I've probably got 2 more passes before I'm where I can start doing the final finishing cuts as far as the shape is concerned. Here's where you're going to stop and start a lot because you got to check and make sure you're lined up. Don't worry about this. This is making sure this doesn't flex. Worry about getting this right, then we'll worry about this. Okay, so this part of the rim is right. Here, where I started coming around, is where my bowl is getting shallow too soon. So at this point, I have no choice but to start taking these shoulders down. Now, here I'm kind of coming in a scooping motion, and you can see it here. I'm picking up the grain like this and cutting it, right? But when I'm going to take this down, a cleaner cut that does less damage and doesn't rip grain out is to come cross grain. I'm just coming straight across the grain. Looks like this. These are clean cuts. There's really almost no tear out. That's a very clean cut. I need to sharpen my gouge, but there's almost no tear out. Now, remember I said that this is where I'm starting to get too shallow. If I look at the shape of my gouge, I see if I shoot it, if I come in like this and then close up the flutes to get a shear cut, I can actually ride it and get the gouge in there and start coming around and cleaning this out and getting my thickness to stay consistent. So again, I'm going to drive it in right on this angle till it's cutting. Then I'm going to close the flute so that I'm here slicing it. I'm slicing. And I'm getting a clean cut. So I come back here, bring these down so that I can get the gouge in there. I'm going to move my tailstock again because I'm getting off of the end of the tailstock and I'm losing the mechanical advantage. Make sure it's clear. Make sure that wood hasn't flexed. And I'm going to do the same thing. I'm going to shoot, open wide, and start closing it until I get that shear slicing motion, and I'm going to slice down. Now at this point, even with a crack right here in the bowl, because I left bulk here, it's not flexing. And I am about 3/4 of the depth I would need to be. Now the shape of this bowl is kind of a conical shape that flares, that straightens out at the base into a cylinder. So the inside of the bowl is going to reflect the outside of the bowl until we're about 5/6 of the way down, and then it's going to bowl out. So I can actually take this down a little, but still keep that support so that I can get a couple more passes and keep that thickness here of the walls down deep enough to where I can come across the base. So what I'm going to do is, here is where a curved tool rest does wonders. I'm working way off the end of the tool rest, but I've got to do the same thing. I've got to come down cross grain and take these steps down so that then I can get in. When you're doing this cross grain, you're anchoring your hand, but you're not doing anything with this hand. You're actually just pushing the gouge straight down. All straight pressure. I'm just pushing the gouge. When it starts rattling, it's because I have too much. I'm just pushing the gouge. Okay. So I've got to get this angle consistent with the sides of the bowl and then start digging down towards. I still need this here to come support here, but at this point, while I still have enough bulk here, I need to make my final shear cuts here. I've got to sharpen before I do that final cutting. Okay, got a fresh edge, so I just want to do a shear cut. So I'm going to, again, move my tool rest so that I have as much support and as much mechanical advantage as possible. And I'm breaking the rule. In order to get in here and get a good shear cut, I've got to push the end of the tool away from my body. So I'm going to anchor my hand here, and it's going to be kind of a rowing motion. I'm going to come from a steep angle, walk in kind of a rowing motion, and pull the tool into my body until I can lean the tool into the bowl. Mr. Wiggles is in my way. That's pretty good. I got some tool marks in here that I'm not real happy with. I need to get a smoother transition. So I'm going to take another pass very, very lightly. Now at this point, I think those tool marks have as much to do with flex, with the bowl flexing, as they do with my handling of the tool. So a fix for that is actually kind of easy. Normally this would be sanded. It's not, but if it is sanded, what I recommend is white 3M pad. Sam Angelo, the Wyoming wood turner, uses a leather pad. But what you're doing is you're going to actually steady this bowl with your offhand, and something between the wood and your hand, which is why I use the pad or leather or something. And then I'm going to scrape it. I'm going to use my negative rake scraper, this scraper. And the reason I'm steadying it is because it's thin enough that if I'm scraping, it's going to vibrate. So if I put my hand here with something in between it to protect myself and scrape and get these tool marks out, it's going to dampen the vibration, if not eliminate it altogether. Tool flat on the tool rest. If I need room because of the bevels, then I move the tool rest out a little bit. Okay, get the lathe moving. Establish the steadying hand first. Flat on the tool rest. I like to rest my whole arm up against it. Some people don't, but you have more control. All I'm trying to do is scrape away those little tool marks. And this actually needs a new burr. The little burr on the surface, on the edge of this, is what cuts. Just a couple passes with the diamond cart, you can actually hear that is improved. So we're going to do the same thing again. Alright, at this point, I can start sanding at 150, 180, maybe even 240, and get the remainder of those tool marks out. I don't have to resort to the 80 grit bowl gouge. And we can start working on the bottom of the bowl. So at this point, now, I got to start pulling bulk out of it again. I just sharpened that half-inch bowl gouge. Okay, here is where a 60-degree face on a bowl gouge becomes advantageous. And you can do this with an Ellsworth grind. I'll show you. But I feel that the bottom feeder or the English grind is probably the better choice of how to do this. 40/40 fails in the bottom of the bowl. You can do it, but it's hard and you end up sanding a lot. So remember, this is at 60 degrees. So almost straight in, ride the bevel. I'm getting an okay cut with the Ellsworth grind. You absolutely can finish the bottom of the bowl with the Ellsworth grind at 60 degrees on the nose. However, the traditional English grind, also at 60 degrees, really gives you a little bit more power and a little bit more control, because remember, the disadvantage of the 60-degree English grind is all of this bevel touching, where the Ellsworth you have less bevel. Well, this is a case where all of that bevel gives you more control and is going to give you a firmer or a finer finish. So you just come in and ride that bevel. When you're hit, let the tool do the work. When you're hit from right to left, let the tool do the work. Now let me show you with the 40/40. Here is why I recommend taking the heel off of the 40/40 grind. Otherwise, you've got that 40 degrees and you start pushing it and swinging out, and you're going to, in a deeper bowl, do this. So if you take the heel off, you can ride that 40/40 bevel on just that front part. And the heel of the gouge doesn't get in your way. Conversely, here's what my 1/2-inch gouge with the 45 degree and the heel is still on it. I have to actually lean up over and ride. I have to kind of ride on top of the tool in order to maintain control in that bottom, because I've got all this heel on my bevel. So at 60 degrees, that's beneficial because it lets you ride the bevel and maintain a good controlled cut. But at 45 degrees, it kicks the back of your tool out. And at 40 degrees, it kicks the back of your tool out. Depending on the depth of the bowl, you can start whacking the rim, and it ends up causing issues, which is why many, many turners have a bottom feeder. Even though I have to lean over a little bit to get up here, I'm just sliding my hips. I'm just moving my hips. I'm kind of coming up from on the front of my foot, rocking back and swinging my hips, and I get a nice, smooth, controlled cut. Now again, because of the shape of this bowl, I'm here departing this slope. Here I'm departing it because otherwise I'm going to have a funnel-shaped bowl, which on the outside it is kind of funnel-shaped, but on the inside I don't want it to be. And the bottom feeder actually is going to turn this corner and smooth this little section out really well. And if I use that shooting motion where I line up this, it's not really a wing, but if I line it up, so I start wide open and then close it to about 45 degrees and swing my hips, I get a nice, smooth, clean cut. Same thing, I can do the rowing motion. But see, with the row, you can see I've got tool lines out here. I've got marks out here. Whereas if I shoot it, where I stand it up, line up the bevel, and then close it, and swing my hips, I get a much smoother cut. Now, you can shear scrape on the inside of the bowl. This is where Ellsworth grind, again, is excellent. Again, same kind of thing. You're just scraping with this little section right here. That little corner right there is what you're scraping with. Tool on the tool rest, anchor your hand. You're just going to slide back and forth, and you're going to be very, very light. Works both directions, as long as you are very, very gentle. That works. Bowl scrapers also work really well. Same concept, burr on the edge of the scraper. That burr is what cuts, and it actually cuts. That's a traditional scraper. 80 degrees bluff edge. And then I've got the negative rake scraper, 80 degree bluff edge, 15 degree down edge. You can get much more specific with the negative rake scraper, much closer in. It's only a 1/2 inch bar, so I can get in real tight. Notice I'm basically anchoring my hand and moving the end of the tool. I'm letting the head of the tool do the work. Now, not bad. I have a little bit of a bulge right here where I transition to my bottom feeder. So I'm going to clean that up with my 1/2 inch gouge. I just need to come right around this corner. This is high, right? It's a high spot. Shoot the edge. Squeeze it tight, close it up. I lose my mechanical advantage, so I go back to my bottom feeder. As long as you move smooth and do not pull with your left hand, you should get fairly decent cuts. It's a little punky in here. I've still got a high spot. I need to go back to my 45 degree. Now, because of the shape of this bowl, I have plenty of room at the bottom. I'm not worried about making the funnel. Another reason I like this shape of bowl in particular. I have to do something really dumb to go all the way through the bottom. That's pretty clean. Pretty clean. Now I can't mess around out here. I don't want to. If I touch a tool out here at this point with the bowl hollow, let's see if I can do it. This bowl, see it? This bowl is flexing as it turns. So basically from the top third, I can't touch the top third of this bowl. For time's sake, I didn't sand, but normally by the time I got down here and I still had bulk here, I'd sand. Then I'd hollow a little more and sand. Then I'd finish and sand. For time, I didn't do that here, but you can see it really doesn't take much to flex that bowl. And just touching it with a tool up above this top third, if I hit this top edge with a tool right now and I'm not extremely light, that crack will shatter and it'll just shoot bowl everywhere. So that's it. That's some basic tool handling. That's all I'm going to do for today because I am having an allergic reaction to the walnut and it's starting to hurt my brain. Do I have any questions before I sign off? Any questions? All right, if not, thank you very much. Links are in my bio. And I am going to edit a YouTube video together of this. So you'll be able to watch a condensed version. You'll be able to watch this over and over again. It'll be on my YouTube channel. I have Patreon. I am going to do a sharpening video for Patreon. I am still learning sharpening. I think I'll always be learning sharpening. So that's going to be a video where I just pass on what I know at this point in time. I am going to tell you guys that I have a one-on-one session on Wednesday with Mark Soleil that I'm really looking forward to, and I'm going to learn worlds of information from Mark, and I'm going to share it with you guys. So stick around. So this is the bowl, and again, I have this kind of a funnel shape on the outside. I like this shape. It's just a shape that appeals to me, and that's spalted walnut, which is very rare. It's very rare to have spalting in walnut, so that's really cool. But then I have the kind of the regular smooth bowl shape on the inside. So, and this is an exercise bowl, and it was done in haste. This is actually pretty light. I didn't do bad. I can do much better, but this was more about getting the video together to pass some turning tips on. So I have a consistent wall thickness of about 1/8 of an inch. I'm a little bit flared here, but that actually works with the shape. So I don't care. It actually is kind of nice. But I'm at least 1/8 of an inch at the bottom. Like I said, I really, with this shape, don't have to worry about going through the bottom, even though I have a recess. But also with this shape, if I did go through the bottom, I could just buy an antique style hanging lamp fixture, clean it up, stick the fixture through, and I have a nice little light shade. So turn a funnel into a feature. All right, that's all I got. I've got one hell of a headache from this walnut. So thank y'all, and I will see you guys soon.